The television courtroom had never witnessed such pure, unfiltered audacity. The moment Karen Morrison's voice pierced through the air with those three words, "I'll sue you," pointed directly at Judge Judy Scanlon herself, the entire room seemed to freeze in collective shock. But what happened in the next 8 seconds would become the most viral courtroom moment in internet history, shared over 89 million times and trending for 4 consecutive days. Because Karen's own lawyer, a respected attorney with 15 years of experience, did something absolutely unprecedented. He stood up, gathered his briefcase and walked out of the courtroom on live television, abandoning his client in the middle of her case. This entitled, arrogant woman had walked into America's toughest courtroom thinking she could bully, intimidate, and talk her way to victory. She had no idea that her behavior would be so outrageous, so disrespectful, so completely unbearable that even the man being paid to defend her couldn't stomach another second of representing her. Before we show you the exact moment when Karen's world collapsed and her lawyer made courtroom history, you need to understand how this disaster began. The case seems straightforward enough on paper. Sarah Chin, a 34-year-old small business owner who ran a catering company in suburban Phoenix, was suing Karen Morrison for $12,500 in damages. Sarah claimed that Karen had deliberately destroyed her business through a calculated campaign of harassment, fake negative reviews, and intimidation of her clients. On the other side sat Karen Morrison, a 52-year-old real estate investor who drove a white Mercedes with vanity plates and wore designer suits like armor against accountability. From the moment Karen strutted into Judge Judy's courtroom, every single person could sense something was different about this case. The energy was wrong. The tension was immediate. Karen's body language screamed entitlement and contempt. She rolled her eyes during the bailiff's instructions, checked her phone while the plaintiff was being sworn in, and wore a smirk that suggested she found this entire process beneath her dignity. Seated beside Karen was her attorney, Robert Martinez, a well-respected lawyer who had handled hundreds of small claims cases and appeared on Judge Judy's show multiple times before without incident. But today, Robert looked uncomfortable from the very beginning. His shoulders were tense, his jaw was clenched, and he kept shooting worried glances at his client as if he already knew this was going to be a disaster. Karen had brought with her an overstuffed folder bursting with papers, printouts from random websites, and what she clearly believed was an airtight case built on internet research and her own inflated sense of legal expertise. She clutched that folder like it was a shield that would protect her from accountability, having no idea that Judge Judy had already spotted 12 different lies and inconsistencies in Karen's initial paperwork before she ever walked through the courtroom doors. Sarah Chin sat in the plaintiff's chair looking small, nervous, and exhausted. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her own folder containing screenshots, financial records, and documentation of the nightmare Karen had put her through for the past 8 months. Sarah had built her catering business from nothing, working 80-hour weeks, sacrificing time with her family, and slowly building a reputation for quality and reliability in her community. She had regular clients, positive word of mouth, and dreams of expanding into a second location. Then Karen Morrison entered her life like a tornado wrapped in Chanel perfume and destroyed everything Sarah had worked so hard to build. The dispute had started over something so minor it seemed almost absurd. Karen had attended a party where Sarah was catering, tasted the food, and immediately approached Sarah with a business proposition. Karen's daughter was getting married in 3 months, and Karen wanted Sarah to cater the entire wedding. 150 guests, full dinner service, appetizers, dessert table, the works. The kind of job that could generate $15,000 in revenue for a small business like Sarah's. But there was a catch. Karen didn't want to pay for it. She wanted Sarah to provide everything for free in exchange for exposure and the opportunity to serve some of Karen's wealthy real estate friends who might become future clients. When Sarah politely but firmly explained that she couldn't possibly provide $15,000 worth of catering services for free, that she had employees to pay and ingredients to purchase and a business to run, Karen's friendly demeanor evaporated instantly. The entitled smile disappeared and was replaced by cold fury. Karen told Sarah that she was making a huge mistake, that she was turning down the opportunity of a lifetime, and that she would regret this decision. Sarah thought that was the end of it. She had no idea that Karen Morrison never accepted the word no, and that refusing Karen's demands had just marked her for complete destruction. What Karen didn't know was that Judge Judy had been studying cases like this for months, identifying patterns of behavior from entitled individuals who weaponized online reviews and social pressure to harm small businesses. And Karen had just walked into a trap set by someone who had crushed 20,000 cases before breakfast. Judge Judy opened the proceedings with her signature no-nonsense approach, her voice cutting through the courtroom tension like a surgical blade. Ms. Morrison, you're being sued for $12,500 by Ms. Chen, who claims you deliberately destroyed her catering business through harassment and defamation. Tell me what happened. It was a simple, straightforward question that any reasonable defendant would answer calmly and factually. But Karen Morrison was not reasonable, and what came out of her mouth next set the tone for the disaster that was about to unfold. Instead of simply explaining her side of the story, Karen launched into a theatrical performance that would have made Broadway actors cringe with embarrassment. She leaned back in her chair with exaggerated casualness, waved her hand dismissively toward Sarah, and began speaking in a condescending tone that dripped with fake sophistication and manufactured superiority. Your Honor, this whole situation is absolutely ridiculous, and frankly, I'm shocked I even have to be here defending myself against someone who clearly can't handle criticism. I attended a party where Ms. Chen was catering, and let me just say the food was mediocre at best. I approached her afterward with an incredible opportunity to cater my daughter's wedding, which would have been amazing exposure for her little business. But instead of being grateful, she got defensive and refused. So I did what any consumer has the right to do. I left honest reviews about my experience. Karen's lawyer, Robert Martinez, immediately tensed up. He leaned toward her and whispered urgently, "Mrs. Morrison, just answer the question directly. Don't editorialize." But Karen waved him off like he was an annoying fly buzzing around her head. "I've got this, Robert. I know what I'm doing." Judge Judy's eyebrows raised slightly, that subtle warning sign that regular viewers recognized as the calm before the storm. "Ms. Morrison, I didn't ask for your opinions about Ms. Chen's business practices or your assessment of her food quality. I asked you what happened. Can you answer that question without the commentary?" The courtroom held its breath, waiting to see if Karen would recognize the warning and adjust her attitude accordingly. She didn't. Instead, Karen let out an exaggerated sigh, rolled her eyes dramatically, and responded in a tone that suggested she was dealing with someone of limited intelligence. "Well, if you'd let me finish my explanation, Judge, you'd understand the full context of why this lawsuit is completely baseless." The temperature in the courtroom dropped about 20 degrees. Even the camera operators seemed to freeze. Robert Martinez closed his eyes briefly, as if praying for patience or perhaps an escape route. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly, her gaze sharpening into the kind of focused intensity that had reduced countless arrogant litigants to stammering apologies. "Excuse me? Did you just tell me to let you finish? In my courtroom?" Karen, somehow still oblivious to the danger she was in, doubled down on her disrespect. "I'm just saying that I need to provide context for my actions, and I can't do that if I keep getting interrupted." Judge Judy's patience, already wearing dangerously thin, was about to snap completely. She straightened in her chair and fixed Karen with a stare that had made seasoned attorneys nervous. "Ms. Morrison, let me explain something to you very clearly. This is my courtroom. I ask the questions. You answer them. That's how this works. Do you understand?" Karen's response was to shift uncomfortably and mutter under her breath, just loud enough to be caught by the microphone, "This is unbelievable." Robert Martinez actually dropped his pen at that moment, letting it clatter against the table as he put his head in his hands. He knew exactly where this was heading, and there was nothing he could do to stop the train wreck his client was creating. Judge Judy decided to change tactics, moving directly to the evidence. "Ms. Chen, please show me what you have." Sarah stood shakily and presented her folder, pulling out printed screenshots with trembling hands. "Your Honor, after I declined to cater her daughter's wedding for free, Karen started leaving negative reviews about my business. But she didn't just leave one review. She created multiple fake accounts and left 47 different negative reviews across Google, Yelp, Facebook, and wedding planning websites." The courtroom erupted in gasps. Judge Judy took the evidence and began examining it carefully, her expression growing darker with each page. "Ms. Morrison, it says here that you created accounts under names like Lisa Stevens, Margaret Thompson, and Jessica Park. All of these reviews were posted within a 2-week period, all saying nearly identical things about Ms. Chen's catering being terrible, unreliable, and unprofessional. Did you write these?" Karen's face flushed red, but instead of showing remorse, she became defensive and angry. "I have freedom of speech. I can leave whatever reviews I want. Maybe if Sarah's food was better, she wouldn't have to worry about honest feedback." Judge Judy's voice cut through like ice. "Honest feedback? You created 47 fake identities to destroy this woman's business because she wouldn't work for free. That's not feedback. That's harassment and defamation." Karen stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Her face was twisted with rage, her finger pointing directly at Judge Judy. "This is biased. You're attacking me. You've already made up your mind. I'll sue you." The courtroom exploded into chaos. Audience members gasped audibly, some standing halfway out of their seats in shock. The bailiff took a step forward, hand moving instinctively toward his belt. Sarah Chen's mouth fell open, tears streaming down her face as she watched this woman who had terrorized her for months completely unravel on national television. But the most dramatic reaction came from Robert Martinez. Karen's own lawyer stood up slowly, his face a mixture of horror, embarrassment, and absolute resignation. He reached down and gathered his briefcase with deliberate movements, his jaw clenched so tightly that muscles visibly pulsed in his cheek. Judge Judy, for her part, remained completely still, her eyes locked on Karen with an expression that could have frozen lava. "Mr. Martinez, are you going somewhere?" Judge Judy's voice was deadly calm, the kind of calm that preceded devastating storms. Robert looked at Judge Judy with an expression of profound apology. "Your Honor, I need to address the court." He turned to face Karen, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a man who had reached his absolute limit. "Ms. Morrison, I cannot and will not continue to represent you. Your behavior is unconscionable. You just threatened to sue a sitting judge in her own courtroom. This is beyond anything I can professionally or ethically be associated with." Karen's eyes went wide with panic and fury. "Robert, you can't just leave. I'm paying you. You work for me." Robert's response was quiet but firm, and it would be quoted in legal circles for years to come. "There's not enough money in the world to make me stay here and watch you destroy yourself while disrespecting this court. I'm done." He walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the stunned silence of the courtroom. Karen screamed after him, "You're abandoning me? I'll sue you too. I'll report you to the Bar Association." Robert paused at the door, turned back one final time and said simply, "Good luck with that, ma'am," before walking out completely. The door closed behind him with a soft click that somehow sounded louder than any gavel slam. Karen stood alone at the defendant's table now, her designer outfit suddenly looking like a costume, her carefully applied makeup starting to run as panicked sweat mixed with the beginnings of tears. She looked around the courtroom as if searching for allies and finding none. Even the audience members who had initially seemed neutral now stared at her with expressions ranging from disgust to pity. Judge Judy let the silence hang for a long moment, allowing Karen to fully absorb the reality of what she had just done. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who had spent decades dealing with people exactly like Karen Morrison. "Ms. Morrison, sit down." Karen collapsed into her chair, her legs seeming to give out beneath her. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to grip the edge of the table to steady herself. The arrogance that had carried her through the first part of the trial had evaporated completely, replaced by raw fear and the dawning realization that she had made a catastrophic mistake. "Now," Judge Judy continued, "let's talk about what really happened here. Because this case stopped being about catering reviews the moment you opened your mouth." Judge Judy picked up a document from her desk, one that Karen had never seen before. "Ms. Morrison, you claim you left honest reviews about Ms. Chen's catering. But I have something interesting here. This is a screenshot from a private Facebook group for real estate investors in Phoenix. A group that you're a member of. Would you like to know what you posted in this group 3 days after Ms. Chen refused to cater your daughter's wedding for free?" Karen's face went completely white. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. Judge Judy read aloud, her voice dripping with contempt. "You wrote, and I quote, 'Some caterer had the nerve to turn down my daughter's wedding. Big mistake. I'm going to destroy her little business and she won't even know what hit her. Already created a bunch of accounts to leave bad reviews. By the time I'm done, she won't have a single client left. That's what happens when you disrespect me.'" The courtroom erupted again. Sarah sobbed openly, her shoulders shaking with the validation of finally having proof of what she had suspected all along. Audience members shouted in anger before the bailiff had to call for order. Judge Judy wasn't finished. "So this wasn't about honest consumer feedback, was it, Ms. Morrison? This was about revenge. This was about punishing a small business owner because she had the audacity to tell you no. Because she wouldn't provide $15,000 worth of services for free just so you could have bragging rights about your daughter's wedding." Karen tried to speak, her voice coming out as a strangled whisper. I was angry when I wrote that. I didn't mean it literally. I was just venting." Judge Judy's laugh was short and completely devoid of humor. "You didn't mean it literally? You created 47 fake accounts. You contacted Ms. Chen's existing clients and told them lies about food poisoning at previous events. You posted her business phone number on spam websites so she'd be flooded with robocalls. You filed a false health code violation report with the county. Should I continue? With each item Judge Judy listed, Karen seemed to shrink further into her chair. The evidence was overwhelming, damning, and irrefutable. Sarah's lawyer had done thorough investigative work, tracking IP addresses, matching writing styles, and documenting every single act of harassment Karen had committed over the past 8 months. And through all of this, Judge Judy continued, her voice rising with righteous anger, Ms. Chen lost 23 clients. Her revenue dropped by 78%. She nearly lost her home. She developed anxiety and depression. She cried herself to sleep wondering what she had done to deserve this treatment. All because you, Ms. Morrison, couldn't handle being told no. Karen was crying openly now, mascara running down her cheeks in dark streams. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. Judge Judy leaned forward, her eyes boring into Karen's soul. No, Ms. Morrison. A mistake is adding wrong. A mistake is forgetting an appointment. What you did was calculated, malicious, and cruel. And now you're going to pay for it. The courtroom was so silent you could hear people breathing. Every eye was fixed on Judge Judy as she prepared to deliver her ruling. Karen sat slumped in her chair, her expensive outfit wrinkled and stained with tears, her entire body trembling with the knowledge that her life was about to change forever. Sarah Chin sat straighter now, hope flickering in her eyes for the first time in months, clutching a tissue as she waited for the justice she had been denied for so long. Judge Judy straightened her robe and began speaking with the measured authority of someone who understood the weight of her words. Ms. Morrison, in my 25 years presiding over this court, I have seen thousands of cases involving entitled individuals who believed the rules didn't apply to them. But you have distinguished yourself in the worst possible way. You didn't just disrespect Ms. Chen. You didn't just break the law. You threatened to sue me in my own courtroom because I dared to hold you accountable for your actions. Judge Judy let that statement hang in the air before continuing. Your behavior today has been a masterclass in arrogance, disrespect, and complete lack of human decency. You drove away your own attorney, a man with 15 years of experience, because even he couldn't stomach representing you for one more minute. That should tell you everything you need to know about yourself. Karen tried to speak, her voice cracking. Your Honor, please, I know I made mistakes but I can't afford. Judge Judy cut her off with a single raised hand. You can't afford? Let's talk about what you can afford, Ms. Morrison. You make $340,000 a year as a real estate investor. You drive a Mercedes-Benz. You wear designer clothes. You live in a home valued at $890,000. Meanwhile, Ms. Chin here was working 3 part-time jobs just to keep her business afloat after you destroyed her reputation and client base. So don't talk to me about what you can't afford. The judgment came swift and devastating. I find in favor of the plaintiff, Sarah Chin. Ms. Morrison, you are ordered to pay Ms. Chin $12,500 in compensatory damages for lost business revenue. Karen's face showed a flicker of relief, thinking perhaps the damage wouldn't be as bad as she feared. But Judge Judy wasn't finished. Additionally, you will pay $15,000 in punitive damages for your malicious and calculated harassment campaign. You will pay $8,000 to cover Ms. Chen's legal fees and court costs. That brings your total to $35,500. Karen gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Furthermore, Judge Judy continued, her voice harder now, you are ordered to remove every single fake review you created. All 47 of them. You will post a public apology on every platform where you defamed Ms. Chen, admitting what you did and taking full responsibility. And let me be crystal clear about this next part. If you contact Ms. Chen again, if you go anywhere near her business, if you so much as think about retaliating against her, I will personally ensure that the district attorney's office investigates you for criminal harassment, cyberstalking, and filing false reports. Do you understand me? Karen could only nod, tears streaming down her face as the full weight of her consequences crashed down on her. Judge Judy slammed her gavel with finality. Case dismissed. Get out of my courtroom. The bailiff helped escort Karen out as she stumbled toward the exit, her sobs echoing through the hallway. But the most powerful moment came next. Sarah Chin stood up and Judge Judy did something she rarely did. She looked directly at Sarah and said, Ms. Chin, I'm sorry you had to go through this. But I hope today proves that bullies don't win. Rebuild your business. Live your life. And never let anyone make you feel small again. Sarah nodded, unable to speak through her tears of relief and gratitude. Within 48 hours, The clip had exploded across every social media platform. The moment Karen screamed, "I'll sue you," and her lawyer walked out became the most watched courtroom moment of the year, racking up 89 million views. The hashtag Karen sues Judge Judy trended for 4 consecutive days. Karen's real estate business collapsed as 23 clients terminated their contracts after seeing the video. Local news stations picked up the story, and Karen became nationally known as the woman who threatened Judge Judy. Meanwhile, Sarah's catering business experienced a complete turnaround. Sympathetic viewers started a GoFundMe campaign that raised over $120,000. She received hundreds of new client inquiries and booking requests. Within 6 months, Sarah had hired 3 new employees and expanded into the second location she had always dreamed of. Robert Martinez, the lawyer who walked out, gave one interview where he simply said, "Sometimes you have to draw a line. That was mine."